Welcome to the Traitors, a Traitors podcast. My name is David Bloomberg, and I'm your host for the first few weeks of Season 3 of the Traitors US. Today, I'm talking about Episode 5 with someone who is kind of well known around here and who hosted the show last week when I was unable to, and will in fact also be here for the rest of the season, Matthew Keeley.
Yay! Woo. I'm doing my own fanfare. I'm back. Good to be here.
So, for those of you who don't already know me, I've been covering reality TV for over 24 years, online, in newspapers, on my own reality TV websites, and of course, for almost 10 years on podcasts. In addition, I post reality TV videos everywhere as at David Bloomberg TV and talk quite a bit about the topic pretty much anywhere that anyone will listen. Matthew, do you want to introduce yourself in case people don't know who you are?
Sure. In case you have never heard me before for some reason, I am usually on this podcast and I am a writer, as I always say, a 100% Traitors superfan, and I work in unscripted TV on shows like The Masked Singer and about to begin work with a new company here in the UK who makes sort of big shows, not totally dissimilar to the Traitors.
Ah, interesting. Uh, all right. Well, before we get into this episode, let's set up the Traitor game. Now, of course, Matthew invented the game, so he knows the rules. But for any listeners who might not, my co host and I will each lie to one another once during the podcast. The lie can be big or small, about the traitors, ourselves, or anything else, as long as it is a complete fabrication. However, we are looking for fake facts, not fake opinions. Like, I can't say, I love the way Rob and Danielle are playing. But I can say, I'm definitely wearing my hat backwards like this every time I leave my house. At the end of the episode, we'll then put our traitor hunting skills to the test and see if we can detect the other person's lie. Matthew, are you ready to betray me for the umpteenth time?
I'm always ready to betray you. Yes.
All right, well, so am I. In that case, our game begins now. And we begin episode 5 in the traitor's turret. I'd been saying since the start that Bob was being too out front and loud, and that caught up to him quickly. Of course, now I'd also say the same about Rob. So we'll see how that goes. Now, by the way, I do want to mention, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I find it very amusing that at some point in an earlier podcast, I talked about Boston Rob, never knowing that he was going to be on this podcast. Or on the Traitors rather, and I believe that you thought that it was my lie that there
Yeah.
was some Survivor player named Boston Rob.
Yeah, I thought you invented him.
Yeah, no one could invent Boston Rob, as you're seeing.
And here he is in the
Yes.
flesh. He's real.
It all comes full circle, just like, just like we talked about on the UK finale podcast with you attending parties, to watch episodes. So,
I mocked it and then I was it. Yes.
yes. Anyway, Rob opens up by telling Danielle and Carolyn he would never go against his two remaining fellow traitors. But this is Rob we're talking about. 20 years ago on Survivor Marquesas, he made a deal with Lex to keep the girlfriend he made on his tribe safe, and then immediately went back on it. To quote Rob himself after that, "You didn't really believe that, did you? Come on."
Yeah, even as someone who doesn't know Boston Rob and someone in the UK who it's difficult to see Survivor here. As soon as he said this, I was like, I don't believe a word this man says. I would never trust this. And he's not just because of what he just did to Bob the drag queen, but he's I don't know if he was always like this. He's so sort of theatrical. It's so rehearsed almost. I mean, I would if I was Carolyn or Danielle, I would
Mhm.
pretend to agree and go, okay, yeah, you've got my back. Inside, no way.
I do think he's being more theatrical, but he's always been. I mean, there's a reason he's been on Survivor as many times as he has. And, like when he was brought back the first time, he hadn't necessarily done great in his original season, but his personality was what, showed through. And, like I mentioned, I talked just a second ago about him lying to save his girlfriend. And I will say that at least led to his girlfriend winning and them getting married and having a bunch of daughters. So it worked out for him in the end, just not quite as well for the guy he lied to.
Well,
Uh, um, Now, Danielle and Carolyn both tell us Rob wants to be the one calling the shots, which is undoubtedly true. Uh, that's what he's used to doing. And, that's how he finally won Survivor, by being on a season with a bunch of people who followed and listened to him and did not really think for themselves, which is also one reason I'm going to upset the Boston Rob fans here. It's also one reason there are some fans who don't respect that win very much.
mm,
Uh, Carolyn brings up something I've seen some people mention online, that Bob didn't even mention Rob by name. He just talked about the three new guys. And someone else commented on one of my videos that Bob said in an interview he wasn't even trying to target Rob. He was just trying to go after Wes. But I have to side with Rob on this one. It's splitting hairs a little bit to say, oh, he didn't mention him by name. There were only three people. I mean, the fact that you didn't mention one of those specific three people, and also whatever Bob thought he was trying to do, I feel like Bob thought he was trying to do a lot of things
mhm.
and they went wrong. And what matters is how they were perceived. And so I still don't agree with how Rob handled it, but Bob did, do what Rob said he did.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, uh, he didn't name Rob specifically, but like you said, there only were three of them in the cages, and even if he wasn't trying, if Bob the drag queen may claim I wasn't trying to get Rob out, you still created a problem. You've
Right.
still put an idea in everybody else's mind. If they are doubting those, should we be doubting those three people? So yeah, if I was Boston Rob, I would also be really annoyed about that, especially if you hadn't discussed it before, you hadn't
Right.
planned to set this fake story up. So I understand why he's annoyed and sees it as a problem, even if it's not a direct threat to him and him alone. But I, I mean, after episode four, I've been tracking all the comments online, social media. What are people saying about Boston Rob and what happened at the end of episode four? It was so dramatic, and I mean, people who listen to episode four of the podcast, you'll know what I felt and what Melissa Best, my co-host, felt. I think Rob has gone way too hard and too,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
such an obvious play. So I think the consensus online is, hey, Boston Rob's amazing. He's got this in the bag. And I'm like, no, too much, too
I, I,
much.
I have to wonder where you're looking, because I know you look in like Facebook groups, and on Survivor anyway, Facebook groups are notorious for having casuals there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so they will often take positions that have nothing to do with gameplay and just who they like.
Mm,
And lots of people like Boston Rob.
yeah.
Lots of strategists don't necessarily like Boston Rob. I have mixed opinions. I've met the guy. I've had drinks with the guy. I've played blackjack with the guy. So, it's but also I feel the same way as many do about his one win, that it was, I mean, he won. Don't get me wrong. He won fair and square. He wasn't up against the best competition in that season.
Okay.
Um, so, yeah, you're going to see a combination of opinions, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
there is one other suggestion I've seen online, but I'm going to save it maybe till the end of the
okay.
episode and we can discuss one other way of viewing what he's doing.
Okay. Uh, Now, it quickly becomes clear that the women are not happy with Rob in the turret there. And so Rob switches the topic to the murder they need to commit. There are lots of shields in play, but who has no sus on them? Sam is brought up, but Rob doesn't think he's smart enough to worry about, or as Rob frequently says, smart enough. Uh, uh, He wants Robin because no one suspects her of being a traitor. Carolyn pushes back and says she doesn't want to continue down the housewife path, and she suggests Gabby. Danielle agrees, but Rob doesn't. Carolyn tells us Rob doesn't listen to people. I'm sick of his ass. Uh, Danielle adds to us that they have to get rid of him, but the question is when. She even mentions how you have to deal with a mafia guy, which is probably a reference to a different one of Rob's nicknames, which is the Rob Father. Though she later messes it up later in the episode and just calls him the Godfather. No, it's
Yes.
the Rob Father. And that is because he mentioned some like Godfather type stuff early on in his Survivor career.
Okay.
So with that, we go to breakfast. Danielle, Dylan, and Sandoval arrive first. Dylan tells us he's looked up to Boston Rob his whole life. Danielle tells us there's no eggs today. Uh, Next in are Bob H., who I could just call Bob now. Wes, and I think Dolores. There's still a few of these people who, mostly the Bravo women, who kind of fade together for me. Then we have Rob and a couple others. Rob acknowledges to us that going after Bob with such conviction will put some suspicion on him. Really? You think? Then we have Brittany, Derek, Nikki, and another. Carolyn and Ivar are next. Carolyn tells us people don't take her seriously or suspect she's playing the game, much like we saw in her Survivor season. She tells us that's what she wants. And those of us who saw her play Survivor know better. Those of us who saw that she followed my Survivor rules and even bought one of my Survivor posters really know better. But as for breakfast, she echoes something I've said here, making a face at the fact that they have pickles on the tray there. We're getting all the important breakfast content in here. Meanwhile, Danielle tells us she wants to get rid of Rob, but needs a fellow traitor she can work with. And she isn't sure that person is Carolyn, which makes me think she wants to first banish Carolyn and then recruit someone else, then go after Rob. Which I'm thinking, one, nah, I must be misunderstanding. And we'll later find out I'm not. And two, this is a dumb plan with way too many steps in it.
Yeah, I no, you're. I'm the exact same. I wasn't sure if I misunderstood her, but no, she does want. I don't understand it. I was just very confused by it. It
Yeah.
also seemed to make a lot of assumptions about how well she is going to do herself to be here to
Yes.
be able to pull all this off. Yeah, I didn't. There are many things in this episode that Danielle does that I cannot understand.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it goes back to what we saw in, I guess it was episode two, the very beginning of episode two, the first time in the turret, where she was talking about planning 20 steps ahead. And Carolyn's like, no, you can't do that. I think this is what Danielle is trying to do. It's,
Yeah.
trying to say, okay, I will do this, and then this will happen, and then I will do this, and this will happen. And no, you can't do that in this game.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's fine to have options and think
Right,
this may happen and that would be really great. But you need a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. You need to sort of be aware that
right.
you don't know how things are going to turn out every single day.
Yeah. Sam and Gabby are the last two in, so Robin was indeed murdered. We flash back to see that Carolyn was overruled again after Danielle told Rob she would trust him because he's, quote, the master of this game. Wow, kiss up much there, Danielle?
I, what do you think of the mur Well, first of all, I would just like to say I predict in the last episode I predicted who I thought would be murdered, who I thought would be banished. And I made a very vague prediction of murder, I will admit. I thought it would be either Sam, who is the last to arrive, or
Mm-hmm.
one of the housewives. So I was kind of right. One of the housewives is gone.
I mean, there were only two housewives left, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like if we're saying that Bob was wrong to name the three people, and Rob took it that way, then you can name three people, and sure, we'll allow that.
What do you think of the decision to get rid of Robin, though?
I mean,
I don't
at this point,
understand it.
yeah, at this point, I don't know that it's necessary. There are much bigger fish to fry. I
Yeah.
think if you're there, you should be targeting people like Derek. You should be targeting people like Wes. Uh,
Dylan?
you know, the right, the gamers.
Yeah. And
And
their explanation was, well, one of their explanations I think was, oh, she doesn't have any suspicion on her, but I thought she did. I mean, she came under so much. I know it was a while back, but
and she
even
did from Bob, who has now been proven to be a traitor. So maybe they think that that kind of frees her up now. I would have left her in just because she has such a damn high opinion of herself and she's wrong so much.
yeah, I thought she might be likely to get herself banished still at some point. So I thought it was a strange choice.
Yeah, and then I mean, she continues to show her high opinion as she, is informed of the news and tells us, that she was a threat to them and the traitors are sweating bullets. And
Of
it's like,
course.
sure, Robin, you just keep telling yourself that. Okay. Um,
Classic murdered player line. I was a threat.
yes, but especially for Robin, who, I talked about it in the first three episodes, which was that she kept talking about how she could, do this, read people, and everything she said was wrong, except that Bob was a traitor. But I mean, that was, more or less obvious, I think. Um, so Alan comes in and wishes her good morning to his confused little clique. And it's a good thing that he didn't say the word clique in the Traitors UK, or else a fight would have broken out.
Yes, they were not happy about that word.
Not a spoiler for Traitors UK. After Ellen leaves, Ivar shares. Oh, I do want to mention, and I'm sorry if you brought this up last week. I didn't notice that you brought it up. When Jeremy was murdered,
Hmm.
and he threw Jeremy's picture last week, he said, "A survivor, no more." He had used that line before. Come on, Alan. You are a good enough actor. You are creative enough. You don't have to reuse your lines from previous seasons.
Yeah, I didn't notice, but yeah, yeah, she could have changed it.
Come on. Anyway, uh, start getting awards and you get lazy. I tell you. Um, After Ellen leaves, Ivar shares Wes's idea from last week with Carolyn and Derek about how the only way you know 100% that someone is a traitor is if you are a traitor too. Then they move to after breakfast. They split into their groups, and Bob tells Brittany and Dylan that Nikki is still in his crosshairs, while Brittany agrees she's acting really nervous. Nikki and Gabby reassure each other that they're not dumb like the others think. They're so smart. And I know this is insulting, but I just think of a one of the races in Star Trek The Next Generation, one of the alien species. And they go around and they tell people, "We're smart. We are we are strong. We are smart." And they're not. And I can't say that about Nikki and Gabby, but it just reminds me when they reassure each other like that.
No, I also la again, I don't know them, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Anyone could have said this, and I was watching it with my partner, and we both just laughed as soon as they said that because it's just you're just asking to look dumb on TV by saying that. It
Yeah.
reminds me of like The Apprentice here in the UK, which is not celebrities, as I think it only is in the States now, but there's one of the classic
Well, it's
moments
not
in
at
the
all. And it's The Apprentice is gone
oh,
from the
it's
U.S. except as the president.
yeah,
So
yeah. One of the classic moments from Apprentice in the UK is players in one season just going, "We are amazing." They were congratulating themselves. They were like, we're amazing." And of course, that person then just gets fired at the end of the
oh
episode, and
yeah.
it was just ridiculous. So yeah.
I mean, it's standard, I mean, it happens in Survivor. Every time I just rewatched a season recently where there was a guy talking about how brilliant he was, and he was so dumb, and so and it was clear, he was just setting himself up, talking about how great he was, and then he'd sit there and be like, "We'll see if Survivor U.S. Survivor viewers may know exactly who I'm talking about."
Oh, can
Um,
I add in as well? So you've reminded me of something. I'm going back a little bit, but there was along the same lines. There was something said at breakfast that made me chuckle, and it was Dolores. They found out Robin is murdered, and Dolores says to someone, "Ah, she was a true diehard faithful, I tell
oh
you." And I
yes,
thought, obviously,
I almost put that in there also for that exact reason. And that was I'm like, yes, obviously she was a faithful.
Yeah, made me laugh.
Um, yeah. Rob tells Sam and Ivar that they should look back to the casket situation, meaning Nikki or Sierra is probably a traitor. Ivar then tells Rob that Wes has come hard at Rob and reveals what Wes said. And I'm just sitting here going, Ivar, what are you doing?
Yeah,
And
thank
he,
you.
yeah, he talks about weighing the options that Wes could be a traitor himself and using this as a smokescreen. And yes, it is great that you're considering this, Ivar, but you don't bring it up to Rob in your consideration.
Yeah, it's one of I obviously normally I take pages and pages of notes, but I knew you were taking the lead today, so I didn't take as many. One of the few things I have written is Ivar, shut the F up. Stop, stop. Why are you telling him this? Like, just be think before you speak. Consider could this be a bad idea to tell everybody what everyone else is saying about should I maybe keep some things to myself until the right moment? So, oh, I just thought this was such a bad move.
Yes. Um, so Rob then takes that information and pulls Wes aside, and uh, Wes tries to get the jump on the situation. It says, "Rob, your name's getting out a lot." And Rob's like, "Yeah, by you."
Yeah.
Wes denies it and makes up a really bad lie about it. So if I'm Rob, and Rob has played, I don't know how many of these games now, between Survivor and Deal or No Deal Island and being on a season of Survivor where he was an advisor. He had a big statue of his own head there. And, you know, Rob knows who's lying here.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear he should believe Ivar, not Wes.
Yeah, and I also thought, I thought Ivar made a bad enough decision by doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
Wes then I thought j made it worse as well. I think
Yeah,
if you're so obviously caught out in a lie here, or not a lie, you're sort of Wes had two options, and I think he took the wrong option, which
yeah,
is by to just deny it. I thought it's clear that Rob knows the truth. So just admit it,
yeah,
or bend it a little bit and say, well, yeah, I kind of said that, but that it's not exactly what I said. And change it a little bit and say either is exaggerating or I didn't
right.
quite come up with it like someone else said it, and then I agree. But to just be like, no, I didn't say that. That wasn't me. I just think, but you could so easily be caught out now.
Yeah.
I thought Wes made a bad move there as well.
Well, I mean, to defend Wes slightly, he probably didn't expect Ivar to throw him under the bus
Well,
like that,
sure, yeah. So you had
but
to think fast, yeah.
yeah. Um, Rob pulls Carolyn off to the side and reaffirms that he trusts her to the end. But of course, she doesn't believe him, as she shouldn't.
No.
Then Danielle pulls Carolyn aside and they share thoughts. Danielle comes out of this discussion by affirming what we thought she meant earlier, that she wants to take out Carolyn so she can get someone else to go against Rob. And this, we already talked about this. This is what we mentioned earlier, thinking too far ahead and presuming too many things. It also ignores that Rob has a say in who they would recruit.
Yeah, yeah.
She doesn't get to pick. So, of course, Rob isn't going to pick someone who he knows hates him.
Yeah. I think it also highlights I guess one of the themes of this episode is
Bad
how
decisions.
bad decisions and the idea of mistrust and creating utter mistrust amongst yourselves. So like I think Rob has created complete mistrust now amongst the
Right,
traitors. But if Danielle managed this, if they somehow got rid of Carolyn, she's banished, they recruit someone else, bring them in. I don't think that new recruit is then going to believe anything Danielle tells her.
right,
If they've just they've turned against Bob. They've now Bob the drag queen. They've turned against Caroline. Got some new recruit. I just think they're not going to trust anything Danielle
right,
says to them.
right. Well, I mean, unless she thinks she's going to bring in Dylan, who she sees as her number one
Yeah, I
ally.
guess.
But the
Yeah,
problem is Dylan has talked to us about how much he looks up to Rob.
yeah, yeah,
So, actually, not just talked to us. I think he said it in public too. All right, with that, it is time to head to the mission. And On the way to the mission, Dolores again pleads for a shield. Sandoval says Nikki is either a traitor or a bad faithful. In another car, Rob tells Nikki he believes she's 100% a faithful, but he's heard her name, and Bob the drag queen had said he wanted to vote for her, which he acknowledges to us was totally made up. They arrive at a church with Alan dressed like what seems to be an emperor from a space opera. I mean, the silver suit with the sun on top of his head, and
I read it different. It was giving me Statue of Liberty,
now as I was saying it, it does kind of look Statue of Liberty too. But
which makes no sense. But
right, I mean, it is the U.S. version.
yeah, that's the
Um,
one thing. But Scottish
yeah,
man in a Scottish castle as the Statue of Liberty. Hmm.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
I mean, it's fun. It's insane, but it's fun.
yes, yes. Um, I will say, as they arrived at this, I'm like, oh wow, a mission I haven't already seen on this season of the Traitors
Yeah,
UK. All right, you know.
yeah, yeah. They've there've been quite a few differences already. Actually, that I'm surprised they're really sort of diverging from one another.
I mean, the first few were, as I recall, identical, and then there was the one they did things differently with the coffins.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, we'll see if they, circle back together again. The players' pictures are on the wall, and there are shelves of different urns with words underneath each of them. Alan will read them a riddle, and the answer is one of those words. Whoever knows the answer and steps forward first smashes the urn. If it has gold dust, that means $2,500 for the prize pot. If not, they win nothing and they're eliminated from the rest of the mission. Also, each player who gets a riddle right puts a portrait in a shield frame, but that continues to happen as the game goes on, meaning some people will be replaced along the way, and only the last two get a shield. Now, I'm not going to sit here and read each individual riddle, but the answer to the first one is pretty obviously gold. Bob jumps up and admits to us he didn't even really listen and just wants a shield. So he picks the shield urn, which even he knows is wrong. Bob, Bob, that's just dumb. I
yeah.
don't know that I've heard something that dumb in a long time. And we just talked about dumb things. And, Alan compounds it by calling him a loser. Uh, Derek goes for the second one and picks the answer I think is right, which is compass. And it is. Uh, he tells us he jumped in because he wanted a shield, but it seems to me it's better to hold back till later. For now, however, he puts himself in the shield frame. For the third one, Sandoval gets fire right and picks his own portrait. Brittany tells us her plan is to do what I said and,
Yeah.
what Derek should have done. Wait a bit.
Yeah, I thought the
Dan,
exact same. Yeah.
yeah. Danielle gets the fourth right with luck and puts Dolores in the frame for a shield, telling us she feels the other traitors would try to take her out. I mean, you were the one who caved to Rob last night when Carolyn very clearly said she did not want to take out a housewife. Meanwhile, Rob criticizes the move to us because it seems to show she knows she's safe. Plus, she replaces Derek, her longtime friend from Big Brother, who is not happy that she would do this.
Yeah. And
Lots of
then, well, you'll get to it, I'm sure, but
yes,
then
yes,
changes her mind 5 minutes later.
yeah, yeah. Chriselle gets the next one right and replaces Sandoval's picture with her own, sarcastically claiming it was a hard choice. Sandoval gets the next one wrong, so he's out. Danielle gets another one right, and as you just mentioned, puts Derek back in there by replacing Chriselle. Carolyn tells us she's acting suspicious, and then Dolores, of all people, asks if she doesn't think she'll get murdered too. Danielle overreacts and pretends to realize this, and I hadn't thought of that. And then starts crying again. And I say again because she'd done it earlier in the season. It seems like Dolores and Chriselle are not buying this.
It's just, I mean, Danielle, pick a pretend way of thinking and stick to
Yes,
it. Like, just, it's bad enough that she doesn't try and get a shield for herself twice,
right,
but to then act like you hadn't realized what this would look like, at
yeah,
least just be like, yeah, I know I'm taking a risk, but I think maybe making alliances is a good idea. Like, stick with whatever you were doing in the first place.
right,
I don't know.
right. And then there's a quick shots of different people. Well, I think it comes before the last riddle. Quick shots of different people. I didn't pay attention to who was among them, but apparently Carolyn got one right because she posted on her social media, like, I finally get something right. They don't even show it. Um, um, and then we get to the last one. It's another easy one as Sierra, Danielle, and Brittany all jump up at almost the same time, but Sierra is just a bit quicker and gets it right. She replaces Derek's picture with her own. And overall, they added $15,000 to the prize pool. They go back into their cars, and Danielle tells her car of Wes, Ivar, and Dylan that she's been holding on to an idea but hasn't said anything till now. And she acts like she wants to keep it inside, but they encourage her to tell them. She thinks the traitors left the other two in the caskets as buffers, but the real traitor is a female whose name has not been said, Carolyn. At this point, I say, Danielle, you used to be one of my favorites. Not anymore.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, she's trying to pull Rob's move, but doing it 100 times worse than Rob did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, jump on an existing theory that people will probably be
Right.
likely to agree with. Plucking Carolyn's name out from nowhere is just the most bizarre. Well, I was going to say obvious thing. I mean, no one seems to, no one votes
Right.
for her tonight, so like,
Right.
she's gotten away with it for now. But it's just wild. It's just so transparent.
Well, and the other thing is, like, the real traitor is a female. Why?
Yeah,
I mean, other than you think it's Carolyn, why does it have to be a woman?
yeah. There's
I,
no reasoning
I,
behind it.
yeah. So they arrive back at the castle, and Danielle keeps pushing the Carolyn idea. Dylan says he doesn't see it, but Danielle says Carolyn made it to the finals of Survivor and knows what the fuck she's doing. I mean, okay, Danielle is right about that part, but if that's the case, why doesn't she think she can work with her? It's like she's arguing to Dylan what she should be telling herself.
Yeah.
Carolyn's smart. Carolyn's good at this game. But Danielle's telling herself, Carolyn's dumb and I can't work with her.
Yeah, and also that if she wants people to believe that line of thought, like Carolyn's smart, she's won a game like this
Mm-hmm.
before. That applies to several people here,
Right.
not just Carolyn.
Well,
So I don't know why
Carolyn
she's.
hasn't won. She made it to the final.
Oh, sorry. Well, then that's worse.
Yeah.
There are people here who have
Yeah.
won shows. Like,
Right.
are they not the bigger threat? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She made it to the final three with, one of her tightest allies. And part of the problem, it's a jury system. And part of the problem was she was underestimated. She played a game of being underestimated. And so when it came time for the jury to vote for her, they continued to underestimate her. And it also happened that she did not have a great final tribal council performance. See, I can see these things to you now, and you know what they mean. Um, my understanding is that she was motion sick on the boat ride over and took some medicine, or that she took some medicine beforehand to prevent it. And that, kind of made her a little bit uh,
Drowsy or
drowsy. Yes. And so that didn't help. And then, of course, her opponent, Jam Jam, just had a great final tribal council.
right.
And he ended up winning.
If that's not your lie that there's someone called Jam Jam,
Yes.
then that's incredible. First
We'll
Boston Rob,
see.
now Jam Jam.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so, and now also the other thing that was funny during this final tribal council was her tightest ally, Carson, who she now does a podcast with, who also was a big listener of my Why Blank Lost podcasts. He was coaching her from the jury, like, yeah, talk more about that. He couldn't say anything, but he was like doing this, and he looked like an airline stewardess. Sorry, flight attendant. And so, just trying to direct her in which way to go. But anyway, but the point is, she did get to the end, and she is smart. People do underestimate her. Danielle moves on to push the Carolyn claim with Brittany, but Brittany doesn't think Carolyn is up to the task, which clearly she's wrong about based on what I just said. And then Danielle claims Carolyn said her name. Chriselle pulls Rob aside and tells him Nikki made a face when Rob told her that Bob had wanted to vote for her. To Chriselle, This meant Nikki was a fellow traitor with Bob. And, Rob promises not to say anything, including when Chriselle says she doesn't plan to bring it up at Roundtable tonight. But, and I wrote this before Roundtable, I feel like we would not have even seen this scene if it wasn't going to get brought up tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Wes is talking to Brittany, Danielle, Rob, and Derek, saying he's 95% back to Nikki being a traitor. Derek tells us Rob is on his radar due to a shift in his demeanor, but for now he's more focused on Sierra. Elsewhere, Nikki tells Gabby, Sam, Carolyn, and Sandoval that people are coming after her. Gabby is sure it won't stick because of lack of evidence. Apparently, she's never seen this show before. But remember, she's smart. We get to the round table. Ivar opens it up by bringing up the three names he's heard: Nikki, Sierra, and Rob. And I was immediately glad that Carolyn was not one of the ones, he was mentioning. He says he has no agenda, but just wants Rob to explain why he's not a traitor. Rob says he's 100% a faithful, but we're sure about Bob because of how he acted in his projection back at Rob. Nikki believes him and says he's a great game player, and it wouldn't be a great gameplay move to do what Rob did. It's pretty funny when Nikki, the wrestler, is unintentionally slamming Rob's gameplay, basically giving him too much credit for playing well.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if you mean the exact same thing, but what I thought was if he's in trouble, let him be in trouble. Like she, why, unless she is completely unaware that she's got eyes on her tonight, and that's at least some people are going to
Well,
vote
right.
for her. If someone else is taking heat for a minute, don't defend them. Just let them get in trouble. So I don't know why she jumped to his defense here.
Well, I don't know why. I wasn't talking about that, but I don't know why, unless it's because like he was telling her in the car, "Oh, I know you're 100% faithful." So maybe she thought like they were backing each
Yeah,
other and
I
turning on
guess.
Sierra.
Yeah.
I was just more talking about like she said to him, and I have a video of this that I either posted or I'm about to post. I don't know. I did a bunch of drafts. Um, but she basically said to him, "You're too smart to have done something that dumb."
Yeah.
But he did do something that dumb, and he can't even defend it because he has to pretend to agree with her.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, um, Sam says if Rob survives the night, it's suspicious.
Yeah, I thought what Sam said here was a really bad idea. He says, if he's not dead tonight, I'm on him tomorrow. And I
Yeah,
thought that's really dangerous to say because if Rob is a faithful, you've just given the traitors a great reason to keep him alive. Like
right.
they'll just use him as bait because they've heard you say that. So I thought Sam shouldn't. I think saying things like that's a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, later a couple other people will say it privately, but or privately to each other. So word could have still gotten out. And quite frankly, I think it's kind of obvious. Someone comes like that, and is like you said, or like we said, he's won a game. He's played many of these games. He should be the first one out.
Yeah.
If I mean, in spoiler alert for Traitors Canada Season 1. Okay, skip ahead if you haven't seen it and you don't want to know what happens in the very first episode. But there's one Survivor player there. She won the season. They look at her and go, "You're gone because you won Survivor."
Yeah.
So yeah, the Traitors should. If Rob wasn't one, the Traitors should take him out. And he's still there. That should be breeding suspicion right off the bat.
Yeah.
Uh, Getting back to the roundtable, Sierra says after the coffin situation, she put her guard up. She and Nikki exchange accusations of being a traitor. Sierra says Nikki has been too even keeled and not emotional and not even laughing. And Nikki rightfully says that not all faithfuls are super bubbly or talk a lot. I think Nikki wants to drop kick Sierra from the top rope. Um, and then this goes back and forth for a bit. And by the way, let me just bring up here how Bob the drag queen originally wanted to put Carolyn into one of those coffins. this is why this was another one of his bad ideas. And the others reacted so terrible, or Rob and Carolyn reacted like, no, of course not.
Yeah.
So, um, I know we're speaking ill of the dead in the game, but what are you going to do? Um, Chriselle nervously brings up the things she mentioned to Rob about Nikki earlier that I said I was sure would come up. She's been defending Nikki, but now she has flipped on her. After that emotional moment, Bob brings up how he's watched Rob on everything and knows that if he were a traitor, if Rob were a traitor, he'd come in and immediately go right for a traitor to establish his dominance. I did not expect Bob H from Biggest Loser
To figure this out.
coming out of the blue with a correct read.
Yeah.
And Rob says that would indeed be a badass move, but it's not what happened. And
It's quite risky of Bob, sorry, to say that as well though, and not then go ahead with it. So, if he thinks that could be true, he's potentially making himself a target now
yeah,
for Rob.
well,
So I don't know if it's dangerous.
yeah, I just think it's funny that, Bob comes up with the exact right answer,
Yeah.
while Nikki was coming up with the exact opposite of the right
Yeah,
answer, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah.
like, so, all right. Well, it is time to vote.
Oh,
I am
right. Just
thinking,
before the vote,
okay.
sorry, can I plug in the laptop? I've not done it again. The plug is here, but it's not actually in.
So as we go to vote, I am thinking Nikki is getting banished. And boy, am I right. There is no reason to go through each of these individual votes because almost everyone votes Nikki. Who doesn't? Dylan votes Gabby. And everybody's like, what? Uh,
Yeah, it was. I still don't understand that.
I don't either. I guess he wanted to go his own way. And then, of course, Nikki herself votes Sierra. But other than that, yeah, it is a landslide. Nikki gets up, follows up on what she said to Sierra earlier by noting that everyone is born different and acts differently, so people should not be judged on who they are or how you think they should play this game. And of course, she reveals that she's a faithful. Now, I agree with her. It's one thing to judge people changing, but to say you're not laughing enough, you're not bubbly enough. Do you know Nikki outside this game? If not, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I do. At the same time, well, I'm going to sort of contradict myself here. My first thought was after the banishment, I still don't know why so many of them voted for Nikki. Is purely based on Chriselle's energy shift, which I'm amazed that you didn't comment on.
Yeah,
But um, but then I thought, well, if I put myself in their position, is it just a case of what we say you should always do and
right.
just vote with the group and hide yourself? Did most of them actually not, or some of them not really think she was a traitor, but just vote for her because it was safe? I was just surprised it was so overwhelming based on what I don't know. She was in a coffin, big deal.
I mean, I think a lot of people suspected her anyway. I think that she does have the type of personality that perhaps didn't allow others to get as close.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're not close to her, you either think she's hiding something or you don't
You
care.
don't feel bad, yeah.
Right. But mostly I think it was just, yeah, the bandwagon effect. After the round table, but before they leave, Sierra says she knows she's next. Chriselle tells us she feels terrible for sending home her best friend, and various people console her as she cries. Derek tells Wes that Rob is just too good at this game and is always on. If Derek were a traitor, he'd get rid of him right away. So, basically what we were saying. So that makes him confident that Rob is a traitor, but if you take a shot at him, you can't miss. Dylan tells Carolyn that someone he really trusts put her name out there, and he's trying to talk her out of it, and then reveals it's Danielle. I can't count the number of times this happens all the time where it's like I can't tell you who said this, but and then
I'll tell
within
you.
like 2 minutes they're revealing who it was.
Yeah.
But Yeah. So he says that Danielle is his number one, but she's playing a bad game right now. I agree, except I think she was playing a bad game from the start. Carolyn tells us she was worried about Rob, but it's Danielle causing the chaos. Oh, it's not chaos, Carolyn. She has a plan. Um,
Of course.
Dylan reiterates that he's trying to talk her out of it, but Carolyn says no. Tell Danielle to bring it to the round table. She adds to us that she doesn't know if Rob is aware of this, but she doesn't trust either of them. And now they have to head into the turret and talk about who do we want to murder? Each other.
Yeah, I laughed. I really laughed at this line from Carolyn. We're
Yes.
gonna go into turret and pretend who are we gonna murder? Each other.
Yeah.
That's my Carolyn impression.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
I laughed a lot at that, yeah.
Yes. Now you have to do an impression of Carolyn doing an impression of me because she did impressions of me on Survivor. So, but uh, now we don't get to see any of those Traitors turret discussions, but we do see previews.
Yeah.
And in those, Carolyn echoes what she told us, saying she wants to murder the other two. And then at the round table, she goes after Danielle, saying she's causing chaos. So I think it's interesting that they don't show us any of the turret, but I think they feel that it's a bigger cliffhanger to find out how they react when Carolyn calls them out
hmm
than it is to find out the three names that, they're going to put out there.
Yeah, I noticed this. I didn't see the preview. I watched it here in the UK on BBC iPlayer, and I don't think they include the preview there, so I
Mm,
didn't see it. But I did notice, oh, this is the second episode where they've this the structure of the episode's a little bit unusual because it was the same at the end of episode four. We didn't see them discuss who they might murder,
right,
which is why when I was with Melissa on the podcast, our predictions about murder were we didn't have much to go on. So yeah, it stood out to me as well that they're ending things slightly differently, creating different types of cliffhangers. And I like you said, I get it. I get maybe the excitement is how are the traitors themselves going to speak to one another?
right, right. All right. Well, time for some final thoughts and predictions. What did you think about this episode?
I guess we've covered it, but my main thoughts were that Danielle has gone wild because I think at the start I thought she was was okay, was doing a decent job. I had high hopes for her, but I she just sort of is making mad decisions one after the other. I don't know if it's because Rob went so hard on Bob the Drag Queen and everyone loved it that she's like, well, it worked for him. I'm gonna go rogue and I'm gonna do my own thing. It also makes me wonder if she's maybe not watched the show enough. I kind of think that Rob hasn't watched the show enough because in so many other versions we've seen the same thing. A traitor goes so hard on another traitor, and it just becomes pretty obvious the other players, at least a couple of days later, something was very weird about how confident you were. So th those are in terms of those are my main thoughts on the episode. That lots of strange decisions being made by the traitors and by the faithful, like Ivar coming to
Yes.
Rob and Wes maybe not lying very well to protect himself. So lots of strange gameplay going on.
Yeah. When it comes to Rob, I think he probably watched the US versions.
Mm,
Did he watch any of the others? I would guess not. Rob's a busy guy. Uh,
yeah.
I also think that he figures that he'll just play his usual way, much like Dan did last season.
Yeah.
I'll play this the way I played Big Brother. No, it's a different game. This is
Yeah.
not Survivor. This is not Big Brother. Danielle, I think, is having the same issue. This she was a great Big Brother player 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, I still think she could be a great Big Brother player, but it's interesting because when Dan was doing stupid stuff, people were all over the place saying, "Oh, see, we told you he was never that good a Big Brother player. He's ruined his legacy. He's proven it." I don't see that about Danielle online. Now, admittedly, I have been off social media quite a bit over the past more than a week for various reasons. But I have not seen people being like, oh, Danielle has ruined her legacy, and she's not that smart. And I think it just shows the difference of, why Dan was liked and why Danielle was
Mm,
liked. But I, I, I will not say she has ruined her legacy at all because they're two different games. It's the same thing I said about Dan last season. But she is not doing well, and I expected more of her. I am not happy about the way she's playing. I am, of course, not happy about her going after Carolyn. Now, part of what's happening to Carolyn is a hazard of playing the way she plays.
hmm
It can be great to be underestimated. We saw that some of the people said, oh, there's no way she could be a traitor. But the problem is that Danielle also appears to be underestimating Carolyn and not thinking she can trust her to go after Rob. Although I do think most of that is in Danielle's head. Um, and not to mention, I think Danielle is just way overthinking things. And now it's going to turn into a showdown. One way or another, I think Danielle's poor play will distract from Rob's. I think Rob is going to last longer because of Danielle. And I just worry that the traitor who's playing the best, Carolyn, is going to end up a casualty.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that Carolyn will make it the furthest out of the three of them, but I get, in the Traitors, anything can happen. Things
Right.
shift so quickly. One last thing I would say about Rob for now is I referenced this earlier in the episode, and I said I would come back to it. So I'm remembering, I'm coming back to it. One of the uh, a comment I saw online more than once, the same sort of sentiment was that Rob, a theory that some people have is Rob actually knows he's not going to win this game and he's deliberately just trying to make good TV or he's just trying to have good television moments that will become, he'll have clips that go viral. So
Right.
he went after Bob the Drag Queen so hard, probably knowing it's not going to take him to the end of the game, but he just wanted to make a big statement.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I don't know Rob well enough to know if that's true, but do you think that could be the
I,
case?
I think it's possible because, I said earlier, if I'm a trader and Rob isn't, I'm getting him out first.
Yeah.
So for Rob, being made a trader to start with was a gift that someone like Derek doesn't have. Now, Derek, he's known to be a brilliant Big Brother player, and he's had some other, popularity on other shows, but he doesn't have the same kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sort of
Just
reputation or infamy.
reputation. Yeah, infamy is the one I was looking for, as Rob does.
Hmm.
And same with Wes. I think after this year, Wes will have that infamy since he's been on every show under the sun this year. But
Yeah.
I think that if you're Rob, you have to go in knowing I'm getting my stipend, I'm not winning. And maybe this will take me to more things. I mean,
hmm
he's been on, like I said, he's been on Survivor many times. He's been on Deal or No Deal Island. He was on some sort of a building remodeling show. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they went in there and it was like, I swear this is not my lie because I just don't remember it well enough. I think it was like celebrity home renovation where celebrities like did it for their friends or relatives or something like that, and then he would go in there. I think that was it. He's been on a poker show. His wedding was on TV. So he is a TV. He is a creature of TV. And that is one reason so many people love him. It is
Yeah.
also one reason a lot of people don't. So, I have people who I talk to frequently on social media who I know love Boston Rob. And so, Stacy, if you're listening, I didn't mean anything bad about Boston Rob. But there are other people who I know don't love Boston Rob. And so, yeah, could he be doing this to create TV moments? Absolutely. Which, of course, is one of the hazards of this type of celebrity show. I mean, all you have to do is look at what happened with Phaedra. She was out of a job in reality TV. She had been fired from her own show. She comes on the Traders. She makes big scenes. Then she's on Dancing with the Stars, and now I heard that she's going to be back on Housewives again.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, if people see this and say, "Oh, I can use this," I mean, in that, let's be honest, that's what many of these celebrity shows have been on. Whether it was Celebrity Apprentice back in the day, or Dancing with the Stars, or any of these shows, it's for usually lower level celebrities to try and get their profile up there.
Yeah, and their
Now,
paycheck.
right, right now, Rob is in the reality world definitely not a lower level celebrity, but you know, for a paycheck, sure.
Yeah.
He's got like four girls to pay for college for. So, Um, so for predictions, as we discussed, we don't even get the usual list of three possibilities for murder. It'll be interesting to see how they eventually agree. Like, is Carolyn just going to cave again? Or are they going to be there all night? I think they're going to go after Derek because if they all talk about it, he is universally thought of to be too good of a player. The one hiccup in that could be Danielle. I think Danielle is going to say, no, I don't want to go for Derek. But if Carolyn pushes it, she could say, hey, I caved for you guys. However, that
Mhm.
doesn't mean Danielle will, especially if, like, Danielle was thinking of recruiting Derek. Um, but Derek's still the best option I can think of. Who do you think it'll be?
Yeah, it's tough because again, we don't see them narrow it down to three, and
Right.
we've got a choice. Yeah, I can see that Derek could be an option. I guess I'll just stick with my other option from last week who didn't. Actually, I have two possibilities. Maybe Sam. Sam
True.
has very little screen time, but the one thing that he said today was at the round table, Rob, if you're still here tomorrow, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to come for you. I mean, it's maybe too obvious a move, but might Rob just be like, I want rid of this guy? Or Bob, remaining Bob. Again, he kind of picked out Rob at round
Right.
table, and also he seems so popular amongst the players. Sometimes we see the traitors do this thing where they go for a loved character and they say we want to shock everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We want everyone to realize that nobody's safe. So maybe they get rid of like this nice guy that they all like. I'm gonna guess one of those.
Okay. I'm going to have to loop in since you're doing two people. I'm going to loop in Sam also,
Okay.
because yeah, Rob was the main one who said no to him last time because he said, he's just not smart enough. But since he mentioned Rob's name, and like you said, Rob could say, "Come on, how dumb do you think I have to be in order to
Yeah.
take out the guy who said he'd be coming after me? I'm clearly being set up here.
Yeah.
Smarten up." One of his phrases too. Um, I didn't do a very good imitation of him, but yeah, close enough. Uh, as for the next banishment, it seems like it'll be Carolyn versus Danielle based on the preview. I worry Danielle will win this, but I'm hoping Rob will end up taking Carolyn's side and help
Hmm.
sway things, and Danielle will actually pay the price for her poor decisions. So I'm going to go with hope and say that Danielle will be banished.
Okay. I didn't see the preview based on your descriptions, but it seems like it could be one of them, or they're throwing us off. Maybe that's one little moment, and actually in the full episode it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I'll go for the other, perhaps kind of obvious one. I'll say Rob's time's up. Rob's going.
Yeah.
They're going to turn on him.
Okay. That would be a good distraction to show that in the preview and then, have Rob go. All right. Well, we still have to end our Trade Our Traitor game. But before we do, there's a couple of other things. I believe you had mentioned to me before we started that you have a listener question.
Yes, we have a question. Well, somebody left this comment on Spotify, and this is from Alyssa, and it's specifically for you, David. So now Alyssa did leave this, I think, after the first drop of three episodes. So
Okay.
part of the comment isn't really relevant anymore now that we've seen two more episodes, but part of it is still
Sorry,
relevant.
Alyssa.
So Alyssa says, David, I have to ask, has your opinion of Dylan improved from last time? I thought he might be an inexperienced sheep among wolves, but he actually seems to have a good strategic read on everything, and I'm really enjoying him. So I think last time maybe you'd cast doubt on Dylan, but what have your thoughts changed?
Yeah, I definitely it's improved. He clearly knows these games. He's not just there for a paycheck. He is there, although he may be among those who need it the most of all the people who are there, just, based on that. I mean, he's mostly there because he's a famous person's brother.
Yeah.
Um, apparently he's on some show called like Down to Earth. I don't know. That's what they put on the screen.
Yeah.
But yes, I do think, he's clearly watched Survivor for a long time. He's watched Big Brother. He knows these games. He has been playing better than some of the Survivor and Big Brother players. Now, admittedly, he's a faithful. He hasn't had the same pressure to make those mistakes, but I like the way he's playing. He's made friends with a number of people. He has a couple of number ones, and so he has the potential to go far.
Yeah. Uh, I I know the question wasn't for me, but I'm going to answer it anyway.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm neither here nor there about Dylan. Yeah, it seems. I mean, I still don't know how he was so confident about Bob the drag queen. I don't actually know how he picked up on that, other than that Bob was so confident and so over the top that maybe it seemed like someone who was too comfortable. But uh, I worry that Dylan will get murdered because he is seen as clever and he's a good traitor hunter. So,
I
and
think it
maybe Rob
depends.
turns on him because he's close
Yeah.
to Rob and no one will suspect Rob of doing that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, right now, he's also close to Danielle. And so, for as long as Danielle is there, I don't think she will turn on him. I mean, she would be smart not to turn on him, but
Mm.
then she would also be smart not to turn on Carolyn. Uh, so, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see. All right. Well, uh, before we get to our trade our ending, we want to mention where you can find us. I am all over social media and reality TV podcasting. Of course, I will continue being right here on the Traitors with Matthew for the rest of the Traitors US Season 3. And we have one more Traitors UK season wrap up podcast to do as well. We recorded the finale podcast. So if you haven't listened to or seen that yet, it's already in the feed there. But this will be a kind of a review of the season. And also, if people want to send in feedback for that, that would be great. We can respond to that. Then, beginning late next month, I'll be back podcasting about US Survivor on the Rob Has a Podcast Network with the name of the show, Why Blank Lost. Throughout all that time, I'll be posting at least two, often more, reality TV short videos every day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as @DavidBloomberg TV. Right now, they're a mix of the Traitors UK, the Traitors US, Beast Games, Deal or No Deal Island, and Survivor flashbacks to older seasons. You can find all my various accounts through Linktree at Linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE in the URL. Or you can find me directly on Blue Sky as @David Bloomberg. And I encourage anyone at any of the other places to come over to Blue Sky. Matthew, in case people don't know you, where can they find you on social media?
You can follow the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trader Podcast. On YouTube, we are fewer than 200 subscribers away from 1,000 now, which is an amazing number considering where we were just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, my target for the end of 2024 was to get 500. Now we're close to 1,000, which would be amazing if we could make that happen. Maybe by the end of this US season. But I've not even mentioned up until this point. I'm drinking from my Trader mug. I am drinking root beer, an homage to because it's such an American thing to me that we rarely have that in the UK. So,
You have
um,
butterbeer, right? You,
from
you all have butterbeer?
yes, at Hogwarts we have our butterbeer. So I'm drinking my root beer today. And of course, wherever you're listening to the podcast, if it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, it's great if you can subscribe or leave a star rating or a nice review. You can leave comments on all those places, send questions, thoughts, talk to other people, particularly on YouTube, share your ideas and your thoughts. And you can email me at thetradarpodcast@gmail.com. Lastly, you can also send a voice message to memo.fm/the Trader podcast. It's very easy to use. And David mentioned we're doing a sort of retrospective series summary for UK already. We've got several voice messages in
Let me
for
stop you
that.
there. Season. We're talking to
Sorry.
US people now. Season
Season
summary. Yeah.
season summary. So lots of listeners are sending in voice messages, which is really fun to hear. And one more thing for me is that I'm finalizing details, but there'll be a special episode of The Trader all about the psychology of the game. So I have a research scientist who specializes in psychology coming onto the podcast to talk about the psychological aspects of the games and the mental games and what the players go through. So if you've got, I'm really excited about it because it's great to have an expert come on, and apart from David, obviously. So that is not exclusive to the UK version. That's for any, any versions of
Hmm.
the Traitors. So any questions you have about the mind games, the psychology, the mental processes, send them our way, and we'll feature them on that episode.
All right. Well, you may be drinking root beer right now, but is there a way people could also buy you a coffee?
Yes, of course. I forgot. If you wanted to help out the podcast, you can send a little donation in. It's not a subscription, it's a one-off thing. Then you choose the amount. That's at ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. That link is in the episode description too. And it's just because there are costs involved in keeping the podcast going and paying for software and things like this cup. And not that
Yeah.
this is necessary, but it's fun. So
Which
if
I
you
still
if
don't have one yet.
see that David needs a trader mug, so if
Yeah.
you'd like to make that happen, that would be you could send a little donation to that website.
All right. Well, now it is time to finish the Trade Traitor game. Matthew, did you lie to me?
Yes, I did lie.
Well, I lied to you as well. I will try to guess yours first. I
Okay.
have it narrowed down, much like you do, to a few things.
Okay.
One of them was you said that the preview did not appear, and you stuck with that. I tried to float it up there again to see if you'd stumble, and you didn't. I think I'm going to cross that one out. I think you've said before that you don't get the previews there. Um, another is that uh, if you've cut this out, if this was not your lie, then people are going to be wondering about it. During the podcast, Matthew said, "Oh, hold on a second. I have to plug in my laptop." And the last time we recorded, he forgot to plug in his laptop also, and that was not his lie. And it would be very Matthew like to do something like that and leave it in and you know not thinking that I'd catch it. So that's a possibility. The other is that you said you were watching this episode with your partner. Now, Matthew, I have known you for a long time, mostly just through this. You have never once mentioned a partner to me, not one single time. So either your partner is someone you like to keep hidden, or you just threw that in there and hoped that I wouldn't pick up on it. So I'm going to say you wouldn't do the plug thing because you did a cat thing with me one time before and you left it in and it confused listeners. Um, I'm going to say that you watching it with your partner was actually your lie.
I can reveal that I'm not lonely. I have a partner.
Yay! But did you watch Traitors US with them?
Yes, he's in the room next door right now.
Okay.
Uh, yes, I did watch it with him, and he had only seen the first two episodes. So actually, he caught up yesterday, and then we watched episode five together. So that was not my lie.
You didn't
I,
even mention it when we were messaging back and forth.
I've kept it a secret this whole time so that I could trick you.
Yes. Yeah, that's a long con. I mean, I don't know how long you've been with him, but it's a long con.
My real lie was my laptop was plugged in the whole time.
Oh, I should have gone with that one. If you hadn't mentioned your partner, that was the one I was definitely going with.
I thought that you might. I was trying to be sneaky as well, and that you
Mhm.
would think I was making up the root beer. I am drinking root beer,
Oh, okay. No, that didn't even occur to me, honestly.
and
It
it
probably
is.
should have, but
This truly is not common in the UK. So, uh, Yeah, it's to us it feels so American, and sometimes you see it in supermarkets, and I get very excited.
Well, using your criteria for saying that you were right in your prediction at the beginning of the episode, then I was right about the lie in this, just now.
Yes. Uh, as for your lie, I only have two possibilities, and I think they're both about Boston Rob. So you were describing him at the start, and you said he had he'd on Survivor he'd won a season, and that his girlfriend was on it, I think. And you said then they got married, and he has daughters, and you mentioned his daughters twice, and I thought that could be a clever lie to say it two times and make me doubt it. I wonder if maybe he doesn't have daughters and he's got sons, or he doesn't have four, he's only got one daughter or something. You said uh you've met Boston Rob. You said I had a drink with him. We played blackjack. And I wondered if maybe that it was a different game. Maybe you played poker, it wasn't blackjack. So I'm going with blackjack as your lie.
Nope, I played blackjack with him. I had
Oh,
drinks with him. It was at a poker tournament. I don't remember if I ever played poker with him, if he was at the same table as I was. But yeah, we played together, and we hung out, and he bought shots, and it was a Survivor poker tournament. It was a Survivor related. It was called Run It Up Reno, um, and so it was a weird combination of poker and Survivor.
okay. I
But
was wrong.
yes. So it was about Boston Rob, though.
Oh
My lie.
man.
I slipped it in very early. It was a very small lie, but big enough. I said that Rob broke a deal in Survivor Marquesas. In fact, it was in Survivor All Stars,
Uh,
which was his second time in the game. I felt a little bad, uh, but I had also posted that in a video a day or two ago and even tagged you in it. So I gave you a fair chance to notice that.
oh man. Oh well.
So, but I'm sure, there will have been people who were listening to this, not thinking about the lie, going, how did David get that wrong? It wasn't Survivor Marquesas.
Yeah. So
Let's see how
listeners
many
have
messages we
some
get.
listeners have probably done a bit better than I have, or thought that you were just completely wrong. Yes, I think both of us have probably had that at some point on the podcast. I've had people message me in the middle of listening to an episode going, Matthew, you said something that's completely wrong, and then half an hour later I go, oh, that was your lie in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, that takes us to the end. We will be back next week for the Traitors US episode one, two,
Six.
three, four, five, six. Uh, that three episode at the beginning, kind of messed me up there. And of course, as we mentioned, the Traitors UK season wrap up. And sometime soon, you'll have the psychology expert on. Hope everyone tunes in and feel free to reach out through social media in the meantime. Remember, everyone, stay traitorous.
And keep us on your radar.